Now, the members of the expert advisory group and the secretary and myself and Dr. Kenny, we've had a very busy 15 minutes. Having said that, it's also true that we imposed quite a heavy burden on the members to, if I may put it this way, get their heads around what we were putting before them in the group work exercise, and then more significantly in the reflective, individual reflective exercise, which they had to do on paper. It was a very heavy burden, and it was a particularly heavy burden in that we gave them only 10 minutes to write out in manuscript their responses to the questions that were put to them. And incidentally, just the one aspect of this which we will put up online is the questions. That will go online so that everybody is familiar with what the questions we put to the members. So everybody has had a difficult hour or plus, and in our 15 minutes, I mean, all we could do is a preliminary reflective view of what the members responded to the questions we put to them. There's a very wide range of views, and all I can do now is just to give you a flavour of the responses, and that is all it is. It's a flavour of the responses. And the reason I'm doing this is to give all the citizens a general sense of what the other members are thinking at this point in time, and on the basis of the knowledge they have at this point in time. We're conscious of the fact that what we have been given is, in each case, a private individual response, and those responses won't be published. But I'm just, I want to give you a flavour, and that's the word I've used previously, and I use it again. I want to give you a flavour of what is reflected in the responses. And it is very ad hoc, as you will appreciate, but it just gives a sense of some sense of what the citizens are thinking at this point in time, and on the basis of their knowledge at this point in time. And of course, it is related to the questions we put to them. So that has to be borne in mind. And there may be instances in which the significance of the question wasn't fully appreciated. And as I've said, I'm quite happy to conclude that the citizens did not get sufficient time to reflect fully on the questions put to them. Now, the first question which was put was, what reasons might we have to regulate or not to regulate through law, meaning through legislation, the issues raised by the Eighth Amendment? And I'll just give you a sample. And again, I want to be absolutely clear. This is purely a sample. We couldn't do any sort of a real analysis in the period of time we had. But some of the members gave the following reasons to regulate. First, as it deals with the life and death, it needs to be regulated. No one should have the power to play God. People need the safety of the law. Secondly, human rights of the individual are at issue. Thirdly, to provide clarity. Fourthly, legislation can spell out the details necessary. Then the other side of the coin, reasons not to regulate. And the first, which I'll refer to, and again, this is just a sample. Because the issue affects matters of fundamental rights, it is not, in my opinion, appropriate to regulate through law. That was one view. Another view was, This is a medical issue and should be treated like other medical issues. Now, there are only two views in a wide range of views. Moving on now to the second question. If regulating the issues raised by the Eighth Amendment, what reasons might we have to use a rule or a standard? And I should at this stage make it clear that the members were told the difference between a rule and a standard, and hopefully they understood what we were trying to convey. And so the two responses are, on the one hand, reasons for rule, and on the other hand, reasons for standard. And in relation to reasons for rule, one response was, a rule will have to be used which will give strict guidelines that everyone will have to follow. No room for interpretation. Everyone will have to follow. And then, similarly, in response to whether the reasons for a rule, standards are too vague. Then the reasons for a standard as opposed to a rule. First, every situation is different and rules may limit women's choices. And then secondly, a rule may be too limiting and a standard would allow more leeway so that every situation imaginable is covered. They're just samples. And coming on to the third question, and I'll read out what that question is. What reasons might we have to regulate or not to regulate through rules or standards in the Constitution the issues raised by the Eighth Amendment? So the difference between that question and the earlier questions is this question is saying why should the regulation be effected through the Constitution as distinct from through legislation? And again, a very wide range of views, and I'll just read out some of them. First of all, reasons to regulate in the Constitution. It's a fundamental right, basic human right of choice over reproduction and body. Another, people's needs and rights are changing. Another, if it's in the Constitution, it prevents the government from changing it. Another, we should have it in the Constitution to prevent lobby groups or interest groups exerting influence. Another, regulation may be used to restrict actions of the Oireachtas and empower the courts. Another, to protect and defend the ethos and culture of Irish people in a more permanent way, to hold these values in trust. Another, a constitutional amendment will give the citizens of Ireland the ultimate voice. Another, the protection of life is such an important topic. And finally, on reasons why to regulate in the Constitution, right to life is an inalienable right and needs protection in the Constitution. Now, I should obviously make clear, and you probably realise this, that I'm not actually quoting verbatim. I'm just giving you the substance of some, and once again I say, some of the very, very wide range of views contained in the responses. And then moving on to the reasons not to regulate in the Constitution. First, it stated, the Constitution is not the place as it is too vague and is left open to interpretation. Next, the best scenario would be to repeal the Eighth and replace it with precise laws. Next, by regulating the Eighth Amendment, you are controlling the behaviour of women. Next, there are no constitutional articles affecting male bodily integrity. Next, the culture of the nation slowly evolves, and locking things into the Constitution just does not make sense. Next, we may feel it difficult to capture in words, with no possibility of change or interpretation, what we want reflected in our laws. Next, there is no place in the Constitution for the regulation of a woman's body. And next, this is a medical issue that should be treated like other issues and therefore not be in the Constitution. And again, I reiterate, I haven't been quoting verbatim, but I've just been giving you the substance of some of the responses. And again, at the risk of excessive repetition, I say these are just a small range from a wide range of responses, and they're just picked randomly without any analysis. But we were careful to reflect both sides of the debate. So that's all I have to say about that. As I say, I've the time we gave ourselves an unrealistic time span, and we gave the members an unrealistic time span to deal seriously with this. But nonetheless, I think it has been a useful exercise, not just for the members, but also for me. And I'm very grateful for the members for responding. So we'll move on to the next stage in the process, and we're moving on to a roundtable brainstorming. And again, this is a very important phase of an extremely important phase, I should say, of our deliberations, because what we're asking you to talk about now to each other is the issues in respect of which recommendations may have to be considered by the Assembly. So we're trying to identify the issues on which you may have to make decisions ultimately. And at our last meeting, you received presentations on the law as it stands in Ireland, its evolution, and how we got where we are. We also heard from a number of medical professionals about how the law applies in practice in Ireland and what the impact is of the constitutional and legislative position for women in Ireland. This weekend, we have heard from medical and legal experts about fetal abnormalities. And further this weekend, we have developed our ethical understanding of the specific issue before us yesterday afternoon, when we considered the opposing arguments around the moral status of the fetus and of the unborn. We would like you to think about what issues you feel will require further consideration or examination in order for you to confidently to be able to make recommendations to the Houses of the Oireachtas. Once again, our facilitators have been given a number of questions or prompts for the discussion, and these should be before you. So, you have those there. So this brainstorming session will last how long, Sharon? Will last an hour and 45 minutes. My predictions in relation to timekeeping aren't always abided by. But anyway, you have an hour to discuss this topic, and it is very, very important. And when you're finished, we will do as we did on the last occasion, and we'll go around all the tables and see what issues you identify as being necessary for further discussion, with a view to performing the task we've been given by both Houses of the Oireachtas. Thank you very much.